Good morning, everyone. Hope you're doing well. Thanks for jumping on a little bit early. We are getting set up, and I thought I'd just jump on and say hi. Lots of people here already. Let me move this over here. So we got Travis, Ted, Steve, Richard, Mark, Kara, Josh, John, Dan, Dale, Kathy. Hello, everybody. Hope you guys are all doing well. Kathy, I know she has a webinar coming up later today with the Fenton Chamber. That's exciting. I think that's at 11:30 with the Fenton Chamber of Commerce. So anyway, hope you guys are doing well. I am waiting on some of the attendees to show up, or some of the panelists to show up. Kathy says hi. If you haven't opened up the little chat box, go ahead and do that. That will be on your screen there. There's Anne, there's Lori. Hello, good morning. Hope you guys are doing well. Ted says, hi, everyone. Lori says, good morning. Very happy that Anne is on here before Bill. I will take a note of that. Richard, no, you are not on video. This is going to be more of a webinar style. If you have questions throughout the presentation, go ahead and put them into the chat, and I will be monitoring that as we go. There's Bill Higley. Hi, Bill. There's Dan. So Dan will be hopping on here in a minute, and just waiting for more of the panelists. All right, so let's make Dan a co-host. Got that. Do we have a gallery to look at? Yeah, I know you don't want to look at me. I get it, John. I get it. We're loading people in right now. I don't blame you. Look at me. My hair is crazy. Kara says you look marvelous. Yeah. Yeah. Appreciate that. So Dan should be popping on here in a minute, and just watching for more names. There's Tom. Promote to panelist. Hi, Tom. There's Les. There's Karen Hoffman. Hi, Karen. Hope you're doing well. Here comes Tom. I'm going to promote to co-host.
Hiya, Will.
There's Tom. Hi, Tom. You should be able to turn your camera on if you want to. Let's see. There's Mark's phone. And here comes Dan. There's Jason. Everybody's jumping on now. Hope everybody's doing well. Hi, Dan. How are you?
Doing great. Thank you. It's a little bright in here. I'm going to...
Yeah.
You look angelic.
There's Rick Shore. Hi, Rick. Good to see you on. Nathan, nice to see you. Still waiting on a few more of the panelists.
What kind of, never mind.
So Les, if you have a question, put it into the chat there. I see that you've raised your hand, but I don't know what to do about it. All right, let's see. We got more people popping on. Mark's phone. I'm assuming that's Mark Breimer. Mark, good to see you. You should have me on, Bill Purnett. I don't see Bill on my list yet. I see Anne. I don't see Bill. So we're waiting on a couple more people here. Oh, there's Thad. Hi, Thad. Les, you will not need a camera or a microphone. We're going to do more of a webinar style. So you just get to sit back and listen. Andy says, nice small cup, Dan. Whatever that means. I missed it. You must have took a drink of something.
I did. He's making a, he saw my mug. Objects in the screen may be larger than they appear.
Right? Ted says $5 Dan's drinking tea.
Hey, great. Excellent. Healthy green tea.
There's Mary. Hi, Mary. Let's see who else. There's Alan Epstein. Hi, Alan. I'm kind of cruising through the names. There's Nadine. Hi, Nadine. Thanks for joining us. There's Shelly. Hi, Shelly. Mark, you do not need to unmute yourself. This is going to be a webinar style, so you get to sit back and listen and drink your large glass of tea if you'd like to. There's Gail. Hi, Gail. There's Bill. All right, Bill's coming on. So we'll add Bill to the screen here. All right, Bill, give it a minute and you should be able to turn on your camera. There he is. Now we're getting stuff done. All right, unmute Bill. Hi, Bill.
Hey, how you guys doing?
Good.
Morning.
Did you use the
Morning,
wrong
Bill.
link?
Huh? Yeah, it's a long, sad story.
Okay. Rick Shore says, webinar style, you mean I didn't need to take a shower for this? No, did not have to do that. Mark says he gave up tea for Lent. Michelle Perry. Hi, Michelle. Thanks for jumping on. Zach. Haven't talked to Zach in a while. Good to see you, Zach. We are filling up. So, Bill, who else do we need? We need Glenda
Cynthia.
and Cynthia. All right, I don't see them on yet.
Yeah.
Alan says, nice to see human beings besides my wife. Andy says, but Rick, you should wash your hands. I'd agree with that. Rick, make
Amen
sure you
to
did that.
Amen to that. That's a legal shield for sure.
Kara says, I see Raggedy Ann is joining us. I guess she meant joining us. All right. There's Lisa Oxenhandler. Hi, Lisa.
Well, you didn't need to start a virus just so you could do a webinar.
I know, yeah. I'm front and center too, right?
The ringmaster. You are the ringmaster.
I've heard some conspiracy theories, but that's the first I've heard this attributed to Whale or Red Canoe.
Yeah, yeah. You never know what we can pull off. There's Ricky. Hey, Ricky, good to see you on. Mark is asking if we can pretty up the view. No, this is what you're stuck with, pal.
My apologies.
Yeah.
It's as good as it gets.
Yeah.
Luckily, we've got Tom who looks kind of robotish, right?
That's a good thing.
There's Brian Rogers. We'll bring him on.
There he is.
There's Cynthia. All right, here comes two more.
Yes, so there you go. I think Glenda might be Glenda and Karen Fox will.
Okay, I haven't seen them yet.
Okay, Will?
Yes, ma'am.
Glenda does not have a link to join the meeting.
Oh, well, that's a problem.
Send her one, please.
I can take care of that.
Okay, he's taking care of it.
Mr. Fix It.
Of all the people, how did we not invite Glenda?
They're feeling embarrassed now. Bill just said, how did we not invite Glenda?
All right, let me find her email address.
He's going to send you an email. Yeah, right now. Call me back if you don't get it, okay? Oh, and Karen Fox is having trouble too.
Okay. All right, here comes.
You can't use the same link that's a unique link.
Yeah. All right.
Okay, I will let Will know. Okay, thanks, Glenda. Bye. So Will, Karen Fox would also like a link,
Okay.
please. And
All right. Copy. Karen. There it is. Okay, hit send. All right, that's off and going.
okay,
All right.
to both Glenda and Karen,
Yes, ma'am.
thank you very much.
All right. Mark Hopkins. Hello from Mark Hopkins. We originally were from St. Louis, moved to Clinton, Missouri 3 years ago, and now moved back to Hillsboro. Welcome, Mark. Zach, can you guys hear me? No, this is going to be a webinar format, so you get to just sit back and listen. And who are we?
You can use the chat.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Use the chat, and we'll be doing questions through the chat and everything as we go.
It's a little bit like being at the circus, right? You just watch the performance, but you don't get involved with the elephants.
Right?
Okay, Bill, I question your analogy, but
Not the first time I've been called a monkey.
It's the best I could come up with on the moment there. It could have been a high wire act, Cynthia, right?
well, yes,
There are other things other than animals at the circus.
that's true. There's a lot of precision involved.
All right, I'm going to go ahead and grab this agenda and get that up on the screen so we know what's going on.
Oh, and Glenda just joined,
All right.
so she left a chat, but
Richard says, Brian, you look so serious. He does look, he looks very attorney-ish.
Glenda!
Mary's asking where the clowns are.
Here.
Right here on the screen.
Present.
Yeah, present accounted for. Yeah.
Karen Fox is here, Will.
I'm on it.
Hail, hail, the gang's all here. Hi, Karen.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm wonderful. How about you?
Good, good.
Good to see you.
Karen, you get the best dressed.
Oh, thanks.
Andy said,
Okay.
cue the Barnum and Bailey theme music.
Will, that's Caesar saying that his email invite doesn't have the link.
Okay.
Doesn't have a Zoom in link.
Will, that email that you sent out this morning, I guess about an hour before we went live, had the active link in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll text him back and
Yeah. I'm going to go ahead and send him a copy or send him the link. All right. Sent. All right, Dave Austin, I can see and hear you, but don't see a setting to turn on video. Yep, you do not need to have your video or audio. Well, I guess you do need audio, right? You need to listen. Kathy Sexton, while we are waiting, let everybody know that the stimulus checks have started. My sister got hers today, so start checking your bank accounts. I also got my EIDL loan today from the SBA.
Very cool.
Ooh,
Yeah.
wonderful,
That was
Will.
in there this morning. So instead of getting the full 10 grand, like originally everybody thought, you're getting $1,000 per employee. So I got 2 grand, but hey, free 2 grand, right?
Exactly.
I will not complain. So
If I
you
would have
haven't-
known, I would have hired you guys. I could have hired the whole E3.
yeah. So if you haven't filled out the paperwork, the form on SBA.gov, make sure you do that. Free up to 10 grand. And that money's hitting the bank.
Now, isn't there a loan for freelancers? Has anyone or self-employed?
Yep, that's the EIDL. There's really nothing that you have to prove other than that you've done business. Even if you have just a side job, apparently you can at least get $1,000 for your one employee business. But
there's also the Paycheck Protection Program.
yep, people are getting approved for that. I don't know if anybody's getting funded yet. I haven't heard anything about that. Lori says, wow, that's great. First I've heard about the EIDL is funded. Anything? Yeah, mine showed up this morning. PUA will be available later this week in Missouri. I'm not sure what PUA is. PPP loan is for self-employed as well, based on Schedule C. That's Lori. Andy says irs.gov has a line to input your bank information and personal data if you're not in the system. So I think that's going to be my case for the stimulus. We changed banks in the last year, so getting that 1,200, you have to go to the website, the IRS website, and fill that out. So, Ricky says my son's business got PPP funded yesterday. Money is in his account. So
Wow.
it does look like that money is starting to come in. So that's great.
Fantastic.
I think we were just a little slow printing the money.
I think so.
I think the printing machine was down.
Exactly, Will. Bill,
Well,
where else is it going to come from is what I'm thinking. Holy cow, talking about $1 trillion these
All I
days.
can picture is our president on the phone going, "Hey, you want to run me another couple trillion?"
Yeah.
Well,
No
the thing that's hitting this week is direct deposit, right, Will? And
That's correct.
what the news that broke yesterday is that our president has insisted that his name be printed on the checks, and as a result, anybody who's getting hard copy checks, anybody who's getting a hard copy check as opposed to a direct deposit is going to be delayed.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Interesting priorities.
I think I might just save that check just for the hell of it,
Mm-hmm.
not cash it.
Scan it. Scan it and cash it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
There
Good.
you go.
Yeah. Thank you. Better idea, Brian.
All about practicalities.
The document I'm seeing on the screen is not the agenda. It's like a overview of it, but it's not the,
Well then,
sorry.
Do you want me to send it to you again?
probably be easier than me trying to find it.
Well, I look like I've got a sunburn. It's red. Interesting lighting, I guess. I don't know. I did have 2 cups of coffee this morning. Maybe it's the caffeine.
I recommend switching to
Went
green
straight
tea.
up.
Yeah.
I don't know how to get to my documents.
So what's the, what are we expecting as far as attendance?
I think 55 to 60 minimum.
Yeah, we had
Sounds
close to
like some people
time?
are having trouble with the links, so.
What time does it start?
right now.
Oh, we're live?
Yeah.
We're in the green room.
You're not,
You are
You're
not in the green room.
you're not in Kansas anymore.
Ah, I bet this is it.
That's that sounds like something that would happen in Washington.
That's not it.
Oh, we're live.
Found it.
Oh, good, good.
What I need is a couple more windows open.
I noticed that, Will, when you flipped that up, I thought, holy smokes, he can multitask.
Yeah.
That sent me into a tizzy.
Ugh,
Oh,
that's not
uh-oh.
it.
No.
No, that's not it. I'll
Yeah.
send it to you.
I just saw it. Where did I put it? These computers, I have no idea how to work these things.
Right.
You need me to give a few lessons?
Yes. Okay. All right. One more time.
And the real agenda is, ladies and gentlemen,
Jeez.
there you go.
Yay!
There it is. That's the real agenda.
It's no longer a hidden agenda.
Oh, God. Oh, that's good.
Mary says nobody can multitask. How many times do I have to say that?
Hey, I've read your book.
Les Landis says, yes, you are indeed live, and those of us who are in listening mode are really missing the opportunity to join the banter. All right, Glenda, I believe it's your show.
All right. Well, good morning. Good morning. Different meeting today, but you know what? I am absolutely confident it's going to be an awesome meeting. So thank you for all of you out there that are, because of Will's power, are under mute. So unfortunately, you'll just have to listen, but you're going to have your opportunity a little bit later today on the Q&A. So through our chat box. So those of you that haven't gotten familiar with the chat box, that will be where you will be able to answer your questions after our fabulous presenters today. So and for those of you that, can they see me, Will? Can they actually see me?
I believe so.
All right. Well, I just want you to know I dressed up special today. I don't know if you've noticed, I've got my necklace on today. I decided today that I dubbed it my Queen of the Castle, a necklace, because this queen, I don't know about you, is spending a lot of time at the castle today.
Yeah.
All right.
Good.
All right, so let's get started. Again, thank you, Will, for being our Zoom master today. Without you, I don't know what we would have done, the rest of us, but we probably would have figured it out. But it's going to be so much better because we have you at the helm.
Thanks.
So looking at our agenda, which should be in front of everyone now, today's agenda, just quickly go over it just so you can get a sneak peek at what we're going to accomplish today. We're going to start out with our own Dr. Dan, who is going to give us excellent update on the coronavirus, a topic that's a little bit too timely today, unfortunately. So he's going to start out with our Live showcase. And at the end of Dr. Dan's presentation, we won't be open for Q&A at that very moment. So make note of your questions. What we've decided to do today, because we're anticipating there's going to be a lot of questions. So go ahead and make note of those. You can, if you know what it is you want to ask him, you can start to type those in the chat box as we go throughout the meeting. But we are going to address your questions to Dr. Dan. If you look all the way to the bottom of the agenda, that would be at the end of our meeting when Will provide the question to Dr. Dan and he will respond to you. And we will try our best to answer within the time constraints that we have this morning. We will try to get to all of your questions. So at any time you can type your question into the chat box for Dr. Dan. And as the other presenters present, if you have a question for them, you can, they will do Q&A right after their presentation. So the chat box can be very active today and we'd like to hear from you. Another way to use the chat box is Mr. Bill, there it is right there on the screen. He's gonna be asking you about takeaways. So towards the end of the meeting, as you've collected and got all the great value from the meeting today, please type in what your takeaways are today. So back to the agenda. After Dr. Dan is finished with his presentation, Karen Fox, our own E4E partner, Karen Fox will give us the marketing spotlight. After Karen follows Brian Rogers. He's gonna do our run showcase. And I don't know about you all, but I have certainly been, I don't wanna give away his thunder, but I have been missing the stick man. So I don't know, I'm hopeful we're gonna see the stick man today. Next, after Brian Rogers, will be Tom Ruich. He will do our Grow showcase. And you can see right there on the screen what Tom and Brian, and of course, we know what Dr. Dan's gonna talk about. After Tom will be Bill. He's gonna have some closing comments, I'm sure, for us, and wanting your feedback as to what value did you glean from today's meeting. Our own Cynthia Carell will come up and give us a sneak peek for next month's meeting, May's meeting. And then I will have just a couple closing comments before we turn it over to Dr. Dan to address all of your questions, hopefully all of them. But again, we'll do our best. We're not exactly sure with the time that we have if we'll get to everyone, but I know that's foremost on everybody's mind today. So I think we are ready to get started. I can see from my view, I can see Dr. Dan, and I know he's ready. So Dr. Dan, go ahead and take it away.
Well, good morning, everyone. I'm looking forward to addressing you all, and I echo the sentiments shared. It's very nice to see friendly faces and to know that the faces I can't see right now are out there listening. I feel connected to all of you through this. We're just going to take a quick moment. I'm going to move into sharing my screen, and then we'll just take some feedback through Will to make sure everybody can see my screen and the presentation. So just a quick moment here.
You're good, Dan.
Yeah.
Fantastic. All right, everybody. And the audience who we cannot see them on their screens, can they see my PowerPoint presentation?
Amber says yes.
Great.
Nathan, Kara say yes.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So we are ready to rock here. Well, thank you so much. I'm grateful to be here today. What an incredible impact that we've seen and what we're experiencing right now. Most assuredly, the first time in my lifetime I've seen anything on this magnitude. We're discussing today community and individual wellness in the face of COVID-19. So I'm going to begin by sharing some basic information, and I'm looking forward to taking your questions. As described, we're going to do the format a little differently today. Please write down any questions you might have, and we'll be revisiting that at the end of the meeting. So without further ado, let's get rolling here. Here is our agent in question. I just pulled this image directly from the CDC website. This is this is the infective agent that drives the infection known as COVID-19. And when we hear about it described as a coronavirus, what's actually being discussed are those protruding nubs that are coming off of there that if viewed in a way that gives you a silhouette view, it looks as if it's the corona of a crown. So that's where the name of that category of viral entities comes from. This particular one is named SARS-CoV-2 because this is a very similar infective agent to what brought us severe acute respiratory syndrome, mostly affecting the Orient back in 2003, 2004, type 2. So this is what it looks like, greatly, greatly magnified. Symptoms of COVID-19, a lot of the information I'm going to be covering here today will be familiar to you, but I hope to be drawing it together in a way that makes it salient and easily understood. So the symptoms of fever, dry cough, and shortness of breath are the three that emerge first. Protracted headaches for many of individuals affected by COVID-19. Then following that, fever, muscle pain, body aches, and then malaise, which is general tiredness and fatigue. So from the time of infection, symptoms appear within 5 to 12 days. And somewhere on the lower end to the mid-range of that, 5 to 7 days, is the most common. But it can happen up to 12 days. This is part of the reason why there's such extensive public health measures being taken to wear masks, to wear gloves, because there's a period of time where we can actively be shedding and sharing this virus without knowing that we yet have it. So per the Missouri Department of Health and Human Services, this is pulled directly from their website. You can see reference at the bottom. Ways in which we help stop COVID-19 spread: wash the hands. We have all heard this 10 million times since the beginning of this outbreak, but it truly is our best protection when we consider the process of picking this up and being able to transmit it to ourselves and then become active infective agents. Hand washing is absolutely crucial. Warm water and a good amount of soap, and the length of time matters a lot. 20 seconds is the optimal length of time or longer. So at 20 seconds with warm water, lots of suds, because what we're seeking to do, the outside of this viral entity is covered in a waxy lipid, and a lipid is a fat. And what we know about fat is a lot of a surfactant, which is what soap is. It reduces the surface tension of it, along with abrasion. The actual friction helps to dismember it. And then the heat helps to dissolve it. So while this, as an infective agent, is very difficult for us to contain in a public health measure, it's actually a fragile entity. All viruses are relatively fragile. So that hand washing is crucial. Coughing into the elbow to contain and not spread particles, crucially important. And then don't touch the face. We've all heard this, but I will say, and I've heard this echoed by many friends and colleagues that I've been video conferencing with. Now that I'm actually seeing myself on a video screen, I realize I do move to rest my head in my hand or touch my face about 500 times an hour. So incredibly important not to inoculate ourselves. And then the distance. I'm telling patients 6 to 10 feet apart for an extra margin of safety. And by and large, the stay-at-home order that's been enacted here in Missouri and all throughout the nation is very prudent because, again, slowing the spread is crucially important. More information, again, at health.missouri.gov. So Missouri has been under a stay-at-home order since the 6th, and that order continues until the 24th of this month. There's a 24-hour hotline to ask, to receive questions, answers to questions. And then very recently, they began seeking plasma donations from recovered COVID-19 patients. So if you know anybody who has had a verified COVID-19 infection, these patients can now donate plasma. And what they're seeking to do is pull antibodies, because the body's reaction to exposure to this viral entity, like any other viral entity, is to mount an immune response. So those patients who have recovered, which I would like to add will be the vast majority of individuals who are affected by this will come into full recovery. Those individuals can then help others by donating plasma. More information on that, again, at the website I just provided, health.mo.gov. So Missouri has 4,686 confirmed cases with 133 deaths as of what has been reported this morning. St. Louis County makes up 53 of these deaths. St. Louis City, 19, Kansas City, 11, and then St. Charles County, 10. So patients tested in Missouri by all labs. We've had just shy of 50,000 people tested. And St. Louis County has the most cases at 1,724 cases. So in the United States, total cases as of the close of business yesterday was 579,005 cases. Total deaths at 22,252. Public health, commercial and clinical laboratories are looking at roughly 16.5% of the tests being positive. So of the people who are actually getting tested, they're seeing that strong of a positive response, and then 8.8 at clinical laboratories. So since the start of the outbreak, 17.6% of specimens tested at commercial labs have been positive for SARS-CoV-2. Again, more information can be had on that at cdc.gov, and the link is at the bottom there. So key points in COVID-19, the CDC is modifying our existing surveillance system to track this and to track this particular agent, and we're using models that are based off of influenza tracking, which is done seasonally and year-round, and other respiratory viruses. So we are reassigning capacity and bandwidth. And information is beginning to become more meaningful. It has been meaningful all along, but now we're actually testing at a level. Testing is available that statistics beginning next week are going to be very, very meaningful now. So visits to outpatient providers and emergency departments for illnesses consistent with COVID-19 are elevated compared to what's normally seen. Again, all of this information can be found in an area of the CDC's website called COVID View. You can probably see at the bottom of your page, I've got the hyperlink in there. So once you go to www.cdc.gov, it's very easy to find COVID View. That is a new, as of this week, That is a new interface, and it's going to be a wonderful place to go for updates. COVID View on the cdc.gov website. Overall, cumulative COVID-19 cases associated with hospitalization rate is about 12.3 per 1,000 people. So highest rates in individuals 65 years and older. So I would like to just pause here and say, in the case of this particular outbreak, we know that the most susceptible individuals fit in this age category. And with that in mind, the social distancing practices are aimed at protecting individuals fit in that age category, and also anybody with other disease processes, including autoimmunity or other comorbidities. Diabetes is a good example. Anybody in those circumstances are most vulnerable and will have the toughest time fighting off this infection. So this is the reason for all of our hard work and the incredible sacrifice our entire economy is experiencing in our entire society. I'm going to move on here. Just a quick glossary. You know, we're hearing a lot of terms used right now. Epidemiology is the branch of medicine dealing with the incidence, distribution, and possible control of diseases and other factors relating to health. And these doctors and researchers working as epidemiologists are scientists studying these diseases within populations, analyzing what causes disease outbreaks in order to treat existing. And this is an important part, prevent future outbreaks. They work tirelessly at times like this. I'm talking sleeping about 4 hours a night and working the other 20 continually. An epidemic is a widespread occurrence of an infectious disease in a community, and a pandemic is occurring over a wide geographic area affecting an exceptionally high proportion of the population. This, of course, is a pandemic. So epidemic versus pandemic, a disease can be declared an epidemic when it spreads over a wide area. If the disease escalates further, an epidemic can become a pandemic, which affects a larger geographic area and a significant portion of the population. You'll hear me speak of efficacy, which is the ability to produce a desired or intended result. This is having to do with medication or other types of support that you can give your immune system. How effective they are is the efficacy. We hear about reservoirs of infections. This is a location within a living or supportive substance where an infective agent lives and multiplies. And then diseases like COVID-19 are spoken of as vector-borne illnesses. And these are caused by either parasites, viruses, or bacteria. Obviously, in this case, it's a virus. Vectors are living organisms that can transmit these infectious pathogens. And then the last is a word that's not heard too often, but it's being talked of constantly. The subject is, a fomite is actually an inanimate object that when contaminated or exposed to an infective agent can hold that. And so when you hear about the length of time that this infective agent can live on different surfaces, on plastic or glass for a very long time, on metals like stainless steel for up to 72 hours, all of those surfaces would be known as fomites. And what's important about that is understanding that if we contact that with our hand and then inoculate ourselves or bring that infective agent into contact with our mucous membranes or eyes, mouth, or face otherwise, we can actually then become a host of this virus. So fomite, the word that's new to many, but incredibly important right now. So community wellness, cooperative social approach, what we are doing now as a world is an incredible coordinated effort to try to contain this. Sheltering in place orders exist now for most major metropolitan areas. Very prudent action. Non-medical companies are retooling to manufacture ventilators and other medical equipment. And just as an example, one of many examples of societal impact, on March 24th, the 2020 Tokyo Olympics were rescheduled. So truly unprecedented to have action like that. This rescheduling of the Olympics had only happened before in cases of World Wars I and II, respectively, in 1916, 1940, and 44. So we are an incredible group effort to contain this worldwide. Let's talk a little bit about severe acute respiratory syndrome, number 2, AKA COVID-19. So COVID is an acronym. CO stands for corona, V is the virus, and illness, disease. So COVID-19 is named as such because the outbreak began in 2019. That's where the 19 comes from. COVID-19 is the actual infection and the agent that causes it is the SARS coronavirus type 2. So it's categorized as a beta coronavirus. Other examples of this are the Middle Eastern respiratory syndrome from 2012 and the severe acute respiratory syndrome that occurred in 2003. All three of these viruses have their origins in bats. Amazingly, bats, why bats? I pulled this from thescientist.com. Why bats make such good viral hosts. And here is a bat with a table full of RNA sequences. Virus, definitely a sciencey, dorky picture, but a funny one at that. Not making light at all of the impact of this. But for bats, the reason why bats are incredible reservoirs is they can carry factors like this and not be affected. We don't know exactly why, but more information is being gathered because this information can be helpful to understand how to treat it. One of the factors seems to be this STING, which is an acronym meaning stimulator of interferon genes. So interferon is an active agent that's produced by the immune system in order to ramp up the ability to fight infections. And we hear about it when a body is fighting a disease process like cancer. Infective agent like a virus or bacteria involves this interferon being ramped up. And it appears that for bats, they have the ability to fight something and then drop that inflammatory response, and their body actually goes kind of senescent in the case that they're not actively infected, they're carrying it, but their body has already battled and won. So they are reservoirs for these type of agents. And all three, the Middle Eastern respiratory syndrome, the severe acute respiratory syndrome, so MERS, SARS-1, and now SARS-2 are all found with reservoirs being in the bats. So severe acute respiratory syndrome, in this particular case, the reason why we look back is the government reaction in different countries around the world to this has varied drastically. And those who have had the best outcomes learn their lessons from the outbreak in 2003 of SARS, and then the MERS outbreak in 2012. And those countries that prepared, had the testing materials ready, had communication between epidemiologists, between the government organizations, and the healthcare systems, had the best preparation. Okay, we hear of Singapore and their incredible response to this, Korea and their rapid response to this. It has to do with the lessons learned from the past. Middle Eastern respiratory syndrome, you know, in both of these cases, they never reached community spread in the United States, not even close. And this is how we're in such a different place right now. We heard about SARS, we heard about MERS, but they were distant. The two cases of MERS that even made it to the United States were both healthcare workers who were in the Arabian Peninsula, where the activity was high for this particular syndrome. But we never reached a pandemic level in this case. So looking at this, the coronavirus, the severe acute respiratory syndrome back in 2003 was quite communicable. It could be spread relatively easy, but we have a different level of that with SARS-CoV-2, with this particular COVID-19 infection we're seeing. We recognize that the senescent period, the quiet period where we can actively be spreading and sharing this is longer. And so this is how it reaches a level where folks have been inoculated and are sick with this without even knowing it, without having the full symptoms. So much information is available on this. The hyperlink at the bottom of my page here where it says, and I recognize you can't click on this and run to it, but the information you'll be able to find at hopkinsmedicine.org. That's Johns Hopkins University. Much is still unknown. We are learning, but there's a tremendous amount of information being gathered. COVID-19, and of course, we did not have artificial intelligence means to sort data and evaluate it in earlier outbreaks like we do today. So incredible learning is happening right now. So we've talked about this a bit. 2 to 14 days of exposure is where the symptoms appear. And again, most of that's happening at a week or slightly under a week for people. Fever, cough, and shortness of breath. The most common initial symptoms. Seek immediate medical attention with the following symptoms. So if individuals are affected at a level where they're having difficulty breathing, persistent pain or pressure in the chest, and Now, an ability of a cognitive impact, confusion or inability to arouse. This is an absolute emergency. This is a trip to an emergency department and a call to 911. But many individuals are actually going to find, I'm going to flip to the previous slide here, that fever, cough, and shortness of breath are the main symptoms, a severe headache and some body aches, but they're able to ride this out at home. Now, earlier on, I was being asked, meaning within the past month, past 30 days, I was being asked regularly how to move forward for testing. And there were not a lot of tests available early on with this for a multitude of different reasons. Now that is changing. So if you have any of these symptoms, contact your primary care provider. If you do not have a primary care provider, the local convenient care spots are available to execute on this now. So you can actually get a test much easier now than you could have 2, 3, 4 weeks ago. Be tested so you can know, but you're most likely going to be riding this out at home. The vast majority of the population does. But again, a severe medical emergency, if it moves towards some substantial difficulty in breathing, any confusion or mental symptoms that arrive like that, and bluish lips or face, again, that's hypoxia or oxygen challenges. So we want an immediate response with that. So we know that this outbreak originated in China. It's difficult to know exactly how this jumped from the reservoir, which was the bat. You know, there are theories. One is this giant scaly anteater named a pangolin, which is actually a mammal. But this animal is sold in live markets there, and they're actually sold as food, but they're sold live. And the belief is that this acted as an intermediary carrier and then became active in humans. And again, we've seen this type of activation before in SARS and MERS. There's a cat-like animal for SARS called a civet, and in case of MERS, it was actually camels that transmitted, but bats are the original reservoir for these viruses and many others. So looking at this model, we've got cdc.gov providing us with this curve. This is basically, this was devised to understand tracking of influenza. We are in the curve area now, the pandemic interval, somewhere towards the peak. We are not quite there, but in the acceleration phase and about to crest within the next couple weeks in most of the United States. Let's just talk briefly. We've heard a lot in the news about different approaches. Everybody's trying to respond to this, meaning countries are trying to respond to this in the best way that they understand. But there's a lot of misinformation out there. You know, Sweden is taking a different approach, and so they've gotten a lot of attention, but they are still social distancing there. They're washing hands, working at home, extended restrictions. The difference in planning there was in Sweden, they allowed, and you'll see this on my next slide, but they allowed young kids because it was recognized and studied that very young children were not succumbing to the disease process of COVID-19. If they became infected, it ran its course and they recovered. There have been very, very, very few cases where kids have been negatively impacted in a substantial way. And there's a number of reasons for this, but from an epidemiological standpoint, what we understand is in order to reach herd immunity, a large percentage of the population being exposed is actually an okay thing. So in the case of, let me put the caveat in there, that population has to be the lowest risk. And in the case of Sweden, what they determined was to let grade school age children to continue going to school and continue to have their sporting events was just such a advantage to the entirety of the population that they allowed that to happen. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw things open up here in a similar fashion. Obviously, the highest risk individuals need to continue to shelter in place. But if once we see things coming back to life, understand that the risk to young children is very low. Now, the very dangerous thing is if it begins to spread through that younger population and we don't continue the practices of separation and social distancing, then the most vulnerable can come into contact with those who are not vulnerable. And that is a very strong caveat that needs to be followed. But that's the reason for the different approach. In Sweden, population of around 10 million people, and their goal was to put restrictions in place that can be kept for an extended period of time. And I thought that was a brilliant statement. The goal was they understood this was going to be a long battle, but they were able to do this in a way that protected the most vulnerable. So they actually kept restaurants and cafes open over there, but changed operations substantially. So table service, imagine a situation where tables are separated by quite a distance, no bar service. You're not coming into very close proximity with large groups of people. And again, they allowed their kids to continue sports practices and activities. Young kids are still going to school, although high schools, colleges have been moved to virtual as we've done it here. So just an interesting study. More information on that at npr.org. There was a wonderful there's a wonderful article on there.
Hey, Dan.
Yes.
And we're about out of time.
Yeah.
Are people able to get this presentation from you?
Absolutely. I'm going to share this presentation. Will you and Bill both have it in your email already? And then I will be happy to put it up. Would it be easiest to share it to the website?
Yeah, I've got it. So I'll put it on our Facebook page and stuff.
Thank you
and
so
we'll get
much.
it out to everybody.
Sounds
So,
great.
hate to cut you off. We will have more Q&A time for Dan at the end of the thing today. So
Sounds great.
all right, thank you, sir.
Absolutely.
Glenda?
I was just, being the high C that I am in the disc profile, I was just taking in all the information that Dr. Dan had given to us. Thank you, Dr. Dan. I so appreciate your calming voice as you go over all this information.
Thank you.
I'm trying to avoid the media a little bit myself, but not all of those who speak throughout the media are quite as calm as you are. So I appreciate that very much.
Thank you.
So as Will has already reminded you, we will have a time for questions for Dr. Dan at the end of the presentation. So I'm kind of watching the chat box, and a lot of you are actively using it and learning how to use it. So, hey, we're all learning something today. So next up on our agenda is an E4E partner, the beautiful Miss Karen Fox. So Karen, she's going to provide our marketing spotlight today. So Karen, take it away.
Okay. Can you see my screen?
We
Not
can.
yet.
No,
Not yet, Karen.
not yet. And I can barely hear you on my end, Karen. So is there some way you can speak up a little?
Okay. Can everyone see the screen that says respond versus react?
Nope,
Not yet.
Okay.
We can hear you better now.
Yeah.
Why it's not doing it. Can you now?
There you go.
Yes.
I see it now.
How about we go this way? Is this better?
I hear you and I see you now.
Okay. Awesome.
There is like a presentation mode, I think.
There we go.
There we go.
Ta-da.
You knew that, Karen.
Okay.
I think we're ready to rock and roll now. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you. Well, we're going to talk, it's our marketing spotlight, but right now we know everything's a roller coaster. But you know what? It's nothing new if you've been in business. So we just have to adjust and we have to move along to it and learning to respond rather than reacting. And I'm going to talk about video. And there's probably not one of you on here that goes, oh, I can't wait to do a video. Most of us go, oh, we know it's on our schedule to do, and we'll put it off and we'll put it off and we'll put it off. But it's where it's at today, and it's how you can really connect with your audience. You've got to have a concrete goal when you go to make that video, and we're going to talk about the different kinds, but when you go to make that video, what's your goal for that? I mean, are you giving a tip? Are you just trying to stay in front of your audience? Are you just trying to engage? You know, there's a lot today that are just having conversations. It's not even necessarily a video of just them, but it's a total conversation. So having that goal, what are you trying to accomplish with that? You know, your stage is Facebook Live. You can start there. And I have a lot of my clients that go, I can't do live. I just can't do live. Okay, here's the next best thing. Do a video on your phone or your camera or Zoom, however you want to do it, and record it and then go live. Or if you're still too afraid, just take that video and put it out on the social media and the things that you're working with. But there's 2.23 billion people on Facebook. It's still an opportunity. And if that's where your audience is hanging out, that's where you want to be. LinkedIn has a live now. I don't know if you're aware of that. However, it's not like Facebook. You don't just decide you're going to go live and go live. On LinkedIn, you have to apply for that. And LinkedIn is looking for applications that say you are going to be consistent. They want, and I've heard of several that have had to apply several times. And what they had to do before they applied is start showing them other videos on LinkedIn. So if you want to get approved for that, it's more likely to happen with already putting videos out there before you go live. Now on YouTube, there's 1.9 billion on YouTube. Now you've heard it from me, you've heard it from Carrie, you've heard it from a lot of us at E4E. Video is where it's at. And I want to tell you the difference. In YouTube Live, that will be there for a short time. Can people go back and look for it? Yes, but you know as well as I do, trying to find things on Facebook is not easy. So when you use the live, it's going to be short term. When you take that live and put it onto YouTube, that's long term. That's why we've done all of ours on E4E and put them on YouTube. And if you've not been checking out past ones, I highly suggest you do that. But the advantage to YouTube, it's gonna last for a long time. It's gonna live forever. If you've not claimed your YouTube channel, if you have a Gmail account, you have a YouTube account. But make sure you start using that. And the greatest videos are the how-tos. That's where everyone goes to YouTube. I'm sure every one of you went to YouTube at one time or another and typed in, how do I blank? So making sure that you do that. Now YouTube has live as well, so you can start to use the live portion there. Another reason why I talk about video to my clients is the fact that people get to decide whether they like you or whether they don't. It's just that simple. And why do you want to waste time going through a discovery call or anything else or meetings if they're never going to do business with you? I use my mom for an example. I love Zig Ziglar. I used to love to be at all of his live events, and I would go as often as I could. I just adored Zig. But my mother just couldn't stand his voice. So I was the perfect ideal client for him. She would have never been his client. So that's what that helps you eliminate there. So it's deciding where you want to show up, how you want to do it. And the reason why Facebook likes their live is because they keep you on their platform. So the minute you put a link in and it's going to take you somewhere else, Facebook's not going to give you near as much love and adoration for that. So I encourage you, go be a star to your own audience and start showing up in front of your audience on a video regularly. Have a great day, guys.
Thank you, Karen. That was awesome. And
You're welcome.
what a relevant topic today with everybody, you know, where our audiences, our clients, our prospects are all virtual. And I know that people really align well with watching a video. They can connect to you so much quicker. So what a wonderful, timely topic for today, Karen. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
All right, next up on the agenda is the one and only Brian Rogers. So Brian, I'm gonna turn it over to you. I think you have a presentation for us, so take it away.
All right. Let me see if I can get the right screen up here. Am I showing my screen yet?
Yep, we see it.
Oh, good. Wow. I didn't think it'd work right, so surprised. So, well, welcome everyone. This is definitely a different kind of format, and sitting here in my suit jacket and slippers and pajamas. So, but anyway, I am talking about annual legal review, and what we're talking about isn't necessarily anything formal, but just taking a pause every now and then and looking at various aspects of your business from a legal perspective on a regular basis. And so I wanted to introduce you to the team. You know, no production can come off, you know, by one person. So this is the rest of my production team. You probably will hear from them at some point. And so I just wanted to go ahead and make introductions, let you know they're around. They might come in and out, say a few words, and anyway, it can be a little bit distracting. So, but this is Jack and Sophie, and then Rocky is our little cat. So if you hear any animals, then this is my production team. So I really enjoy presenting at E4E because you guys are such a great audience. There's always a lot of interaction and I don't know, just audience feedback, and I really like that. So and I do hope that you'll send Will some questions, and he'll chime in and interrupt me if you do have any comments during the presentation, but feel free. But I knew this would be a different format, and that the feedback from you would be a little bit different. So I thought I'd give things a try. So every now and then I like to try to be funny. Every now and then a few folks laugh when I'm talking. So I just wanted to see what that would be like. So I prepared a joke for you. And so I just want to, feel the wave of the reaction from you. So why did the bicycle fall over? Because it was too tired. And I wasn't sure how you were going to react. So I put together some canned laughter for you. So here's you guys laughing in the Zoom meeting. Also, I know that if I have 5% of you actually, listening with both ears and watching, that would be pretty amazing. So I did provide a link to the presentation. Not being all that smart, I embedded it in the slide. So if you click on the slide, it'll take you right to my presentation. That's a little circular, so you don't have it. So here's the link, and I also put it in the chat, so you should be able to grab it from the chat so that you don't have to type this long thing. In my slides, I've got links to a few different places on the internet. I thought I'd give you a few resources in my talk, and I figured you could peruse those while you're listening to me with one of your ears. So if you go to the presentation and you see a picture of an article, you should be able to just tap on the link or tap on the picture, and it should open a link to that article. So hopefully that works through SlideShare. I didn't test it, so I may be wrong, but anyway, feel free. And after, obviously we can make the slides available to you if you'd like, and you can have access to those. So annual legal review, what sorts of things should you look at? I think it's a good idea on a regular basis, look at your business, its operations, various aspects of it, and sit back and think about, are there some improvements that can be made? Are there some things that should be different? And so the first thing, those of you who know me well know that contracts are always near and dear to my heart. And so the first thing I want to talk about are your company's contracts and making sure that you've got them in order. So now, not every small business thinks a lot about contracts. I've got clients from, solopreneurs to, fairly decent sized businesses that have a lot of employees and some sophistication in their contracting processes. But I do think that most companies should think about some contract documents. And I wrote an article, I don't know, a couple of years ago about these contracts and basically the, 4 form contracts that, that's Sophie, by the way, if you can hear. I think it's feeding time, so you'll hear a lot of her if that's true. But anyway, most businesses, even if they're very small, should have a few contracts. So I wrote a blog post about that. If you click on this, it'll take you to that blog post. So what are those 4 contracts? One are customer contracts. Most of us have regular engagements with a number of different customers or clients. And it's a good idea to have a form contract that you can use to present to your customers or your clients at the beginning of your engagement to at least outline, the terms of your engagement and, some of the important aspects of it, like payment terms and those sorts of things. And one of the most important reasons you should have that is because your contracts can help make sure that you get paid by your clients or your customers. So this is a screenshot of a blog post that I wrote. And again, you can tap on it to go to the post. But some of you might recall back in January of 2017, I did this presentation at E3 at Rockwood Bank called Getting Paid. And I outlined some strategies that businesses can use to help make sure that they get paid. And coincidentally, this was this is when I first revealed my total lack of artistic ability and started using stick figures in my presentations. So, but anyway, one of the reasons it's important to have contracts with your customers is because you can put some provisions in there that will put you in a better position to make sure you get paid if you have troubles, having them pay voluntarily. Another important type of agreement that most businesses should have is a non-disclosure agreement. And it's not unusual for us in our day-to-day business interactions to find ourselves in a position where we need to reveal information to somebody that's very sensitive. And if they don't keep it confidential, then it could hurt our business. And so it's a good idea to have a form non-disclosure agreement so that if you find yourself in that situation, you can present that to the other party, and you'll have contractual protection for your information. And that's especially true if you're disclosing information that constitutes a trade secret. And every business pretty much has at least some trade secret information. And the way trade secret law works is if it only retains its legal protection as long as you take reasonable precautions to protect the information. And if you disclose trade secret information to people without protecting it with a non-disclosure agreement, that can invalidate that protection. So definitely, if you're gonna disclose any information that constitutes a trade secret, you'll definitely want to have a non-disclosure agreement in place. And I've got another post that I wrote a little while back, just kind of explaining non-disclosure agreements, how they work, various aspects of the contracts. And I also put in the post a link to a sample non-disclosure agreement. So if you want to see what one looks like, or if you need one for your own business, you could just go to that post and click on the link and download that sample form. Another contract that most businesses should have are online terms and conditions. And what we're talking about here are terms and conditions that people will click through when they're doing business with you on your website. Now, this is especially important if you're if you're selling anything on your website. You want to make sure that those transactions are covered by contractual terms that protect your interests. And so having online terms and conditions that your customers or your clients have to click that they agree to before they buy something from you can be really helpful. So, and then the last standard contract that most businesses should have are standard terms and conditions of purchase and standard terms and conditions of sale. And it's really common for companies to do business with each other. They sell goods, they sell services without signing an actual contract. But they'll, exchange emails. They will submit purchase orders, quotes, those sorts of things without ever signing a contract. So if you don't have a signed contract and there's a dispute that arises under the business arrangement, how do you know what the terms of the agreement are? You might have basic terms like price, quantity, those sorts of things actually outlined in black and white in your emails or your purchase order documents. But other things you tend not to discuss, the small print, what we call boilerplate terms, like warranties and those sorts of things. If you don't have a signed agreement about those, what are the terms if there's a dispute? And the law has a way of sorting that out, but it really puts at a disadvantage a party who didn't have their standard terms that they put into play. And so, for instance, if I was going to buy some widgets from Bill Pernat, and I sent him an email and said, I need to buy some widgets at a certain price, and I attached my terms and conditions of sale, which had all kinds of provisions in there that were good for me. And Bill replied, "Sure, I'll take care of that." And then he sent me the widgets and I paid for them. And then there was a dispute. We've got a situation where my terms and conditions were in play, Bill's weren't. He's going to be really disadvantaged because the contract, when we go to court and the court sorts it out, is going to favor me because Bill didn't have his terms and conditions in play. So that particularly if you're doing business by entering into your business arrangements by exchanging emails or purchase order documents, you really should have a set of terms that favor you when you're purchasing, and then also a set of terms that favor you when you are selling, selling stuff. So another category of things that you should think about are things that have regular deadlines. So one example of those, if you have a registered trademark, that trademark will only, it'll expire if you don't, if you don't regularly update the registration. So I registered Blue Maven Law when I first put out my own shingle several years ago. And you're required to update the registration between the 5th and 6th year after you register your trademark. And so it's been just over 5 years since my trademark was registered. So this year I'm going through the process of updating that. If you don't do that, you lose your trademark protection. And then you also have to update the registration on every 10th anniversary of your mark. So as long as you do that, the protection lasts forever. But if you fail to do that, then you could lose your mark and other people could infringe on it and you wouldn't have any recourse. So it's a good idea to, put in your tickler system, if you've got a calendar or something that can remind you of things that are going to happen in the distant future, put a reminder to yourself that you need to do that. One thing that I see quite often that's expired when I look at businesses paperwork is their fictitious name registration. So if you're doing business using any name other than your exact legal name, you're required by Missouri law to register that name as a fictitious name or a DBA. And that registration is good for 5 years, and you have to renew it. If you don't, it'll expire and you will be out of compliance. So you can see, this is my renewal of my fictitious name registration, and you can see that it expires. I just renewed it, I guess last month, so it expires in well, 5 years from now. Maybe it was a year ago, wasn't it? 2024, 4 years from now. So anyway, so it's a good idea to, put a reminder that you need to update your fictitious name registration and renew it. If you have other things that, like that have regular deadlines, you should also put a tickler for that. Some examples are your lease. If you lease space for your business, that lease has a term and it's going to expire at some point. Now, lease terms generally either, when it comes to the end of it, they'll expire. Sometimes they automatically renew for, if it's a 5-year lease, it might renew for 5 years. It might renew for 1 year. You might have options to renew. When you have an option to renew as a tenant, there's usually requirements as far as the timing of giving your landlord notice that you want to renew the lease. In other words, that option expires, and you could lose your you could lose your space. So it's a good idea to tickle that. That's the same with important contracts. It's a good idea to have a system of reminding yourself when they expire, when you need to provide notice, if you want to terminate them, and those sorts of things.
Ryan, I got two
I'm sorry.
notes for you.
Okay.
Bill says, like a TED
Also,
Talk.
well,
Go ahead.
I totally forgot to check the time when I started, so I have no idea how long it's been. So
Yeah,
and I get
about
really stupid when I'm talking in public. So
3.5 minutes or so. You're okay.
that's all I have left.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well, we got
okay.
time for Q&A too. Or we can mix that in, so we're okay.
Okay, good.
Thad wants to know, can a non-disclosure agreement protect subcontractors from contacting the client and discussing rates?
Yeah, so yeah, definitely they can. Now in that circumstance, you probably will want in your contract with your subcontractor terms that prohibit that sort of thing. I would just take it on directly and just tell them that they can't circumvent your relationship with the customer.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so another set of things that you need to take care of that are really important are corporate formalities. Particularly if you're doing business through a corporation, you're required to have an annual meeting of shareholders and an annual meeting of directors every year. It's so common for business owners not to do that. I just see that very, very often. I do, in my practice, I help people buy and sell businesses. And one of the things that we always look at in due diligence are the corporate books of the seller. And it's very common that they're non-existent. They might have minutes from the initial meetings when their attorney helped them set up the company, and then they completely disregarded that. And one of the reasons that it's important to observe these formalities is it puts you at risk of losing your limitation of liability protection that corporations and LLCs provide. So when you do business through an entity like an LLC or a corporation, your entity acts as a shield that shields your personal assets against the liabilities of your business. And if you don't observe the formalities that are required, then the law might pierce that shield or that corporate veil, and it leaves your assets at risk. Just something as simple as just signing annual minutes every year, electing directors and officers. If you don't do that, you could put your personal assets at risk unnecessarily. Okay. All right. I
Hey,
put a
Brian.
few kind of tidbits in a category that I am just referring to as increasing your sophistication. And as you know, as we do business through the years, we really should improve our operations. Adopt policies, institutionalize our knowledge. Quit flying by the seat of our pants as much. But as we do business, we should improve. I adopted as my firm's motto with my one employee when I first started, always be improving. And that's what we try to do. Whatever we do, whether it's contracts that we're working on or processes or whatever, we try to improve those every time we touch them. And as you're doing your annual legal review, it's a good idea to increase your sophistication over time. And coincidentally, that also helps increase the value of your business. I know, some of us are solos that, or there's maybe not a lot of value in our business other than ourselves. But others of us are kind of building a machine and an organization that really has value separate from ourselves that we can sell at some point. And the more that you increase your sophistication, that's one of the drivers of value with businesses. If you've got a business that has no policies and procedures in place, it's going to be worth a lot less than the exact same business that has increased its sophistication. So one thing to think about is whether you should consider making an election to be taxed as an S corporation. And whether you're a C corporation or you're an LLC or a sole proprietor, it's possible that you can save on taxes by electing to be taxed as an S corporation. And again, this is an article that I wrote that goes into more detail. I don't have time to really explain that much, but for a lot of people, it is would be advantageous. But I run into in my mergers and acquisitions business, very often I run into an instance where a company that's trying to sell itself is taxed as a C corporation. And they get hit hard with taxes when they sell their business. Now, if they had, generally speaking, if several years earlier they'd made an election to be taxed as an S corporation, they could save just a tremendous amount of money on taxes when they sell their business. One of the reasons that you need time ahead of time, you need to do this with plenty of time to spare before you sell your business, is this concept of S corporation built-in gains tax. And if you if you sell your business through an asset sale within a certain amount of time after you make an election to be taxed as an S corporation, you could get hit with some extra taxes. But if enough time has passed, then those taxes aren't going to be a problem.
Brian, I got a couple questions for you.
Okay, we're probably about ready for Q&A anyway, I would imagine. So
Yeah.
I'll just go on to that.
Lori asked, for an LLC taxed as an S corp, what kind of meeting do you need to have with yourself if there's only one member, 100% shareholder?
Yeah, so meetings with yourself are an interesting conundrum. So if you're a corporation, I mentioned that you're required to have an annual meeting of shareholders and directors. If you're the sole owner, there's a good chance that you're the sole shareholder and you're the sole director. So are you required to, you know, hold an actual meeting? You know, it might, I don't know if anyone saw you doing that, they might question your sanity. But what most companies do is they adopt, they just sign what's known as a written consent. And basically those are resolutions on a piece of paper that elect the directors and officers and take care of whatever business needs to be taken care of by the board and the shareholders. And all the shareholders, all the directors sign that written consent. And that has the same effect as having an actual meeting.
Thank you. One other question, and I think we're about out of time. Brian, do you offer a document review for current contracts and agreements the business uses? I'd like advice on beefing up my forms, and that's from Thad.
I do that. And in fact, most, you know, most business contracts are pretty short and straightforward. And, you know, for someone who's read, I don't know how many contracts, it just really doesn't take very long. So, so yeah, I do that. I refer to it as that kind of review is a 80-20 review, kind of on the Pareto principle idea that you can get 80% of the value of a lot of undertakings with 20% of the effort. And so a quick review might take an hour, provide, you know, bullet point comments to give you feedback and advice on your contract.
Awesome. Thank you. We may have a couple other questions. I'm going to leave them till the end if you can hang around. Would that be okay?
Sure.
Okay. Thank you. Glenda, back to you. I feel like a radio DJ here.
You look like one. You look like a podcaster.
You're doing such a great job, Will. I like having you. You know, Theo is usually on my team, but today, you're doing an outstanding job. So thank you very much. I know the panelists and the audience here, we really appreciate you helping us. So, and Brian, oh my goodness, what awesome information you shared with us in a short period of time. I'm sure it was difficult for you to scale down your presentation. The thought that popped into my mind is I probably need to subscribe to your blog. It looks like to me you have some awesome articles out there that could really help all of us as business owners. So next up, we have an E4E partner, Mr. Tom Ruich. So Tom, you would have the floor.
Hello, everyone. Good morning. I hope all of you are doing well. I'm going to share my screen. Bear with me here for one moment.
And Brian, you might have to unshare your screen. I'm not sure if.
I think I kicked him out.
Okay, perfect. Good deal.
You may end up with a lawsuit on your hands, but.
Can everybody see that car on the screen?
Yes.
Awesome. Great. Well, that car is a Tesla Model 3. I bought one of those in September. And I'm going to spend a few minutes talking to you about my experience as a prospect and then a customer of Tesla. And it's not a story of fast cars and all that kind of stuff, although that is part of what people talk about when they talk about Tesla. This is really a story about marketing. And so my experience and the experience that Tesla creates is really one from which we all can learn. It's a massive corporation. I'm going to cite another massive corporation as we talk about this, but the lessons that we're going to go through today are really applicable to all of you, solopreneur, small business owner, small business employee, whatever the case may be. You can learn from my experience as a prospect and a customer of Tesla. So let's dive in and start with this idea. How many of you have seen a television commercial or a newspaper advertisement or a magazine advertisement for Tesla? None. No one. No one has, because Tesla has done zero traditional advertising. Think about how much advertising you see from the major automotive manufacturers. They're all over television. They used to be all over the newspapers. They're still in the magazines. They spend massive, massive, massive amounts of money on advertising. And yet Tesla has not spent a penny on traditional advertising. I could ask the question, how many of you have heard of Tesla? I think all of you would raise your hands. And despite the fact that they're not doing any of that advertising, they are dominating the market. I'm not sure how well you can see this screen from where you sit, but this is units sold, cars sold in 2019. It's an estimate, but pretty close to accurate. And certainly the broad idea presented in this slide is accurate. They sold close to 200,000 cars last year. And these are electric, battery operated cars. And then you go down Chevy, Nissan, Audi, Volkswagen, BMW, all of those combined are not even close. The quick math would say that I think all of those combined comprise what, maybe 20% of the total number that Tesla has sold. So something crazy is going on here with Tesla. There is a story happening with this brand that we can learn from. How can they dominate a market so completely without doing the predominant tactic that automotive manufacturers use to promote and grow sales? Tesla has crafted a brilliant story, a brilliant business story. And in my business these days, I talk a lot about crafting stories and how you can craft a better business story. And this is what we're going to dive into and what we're going to learn a little bit about today. Important point. The star of the story, the star of Tesla's story, is not the car. The car is a remarkable machine, 0 to 60 in 3.2 seconds. All sorts of incredible, cool things, appointments, and so forth. It's an amazing, amazing vehicle. But that's not the point of the story. And really, in the end, it's not the reason that this company thrives. Prospects tune into the Tesla story, and they'll tune into your story when they, not the product, are the star of the story. Prospects tune in and connect when they are the star of your business story. Your best business stories reflect your prospects' aspirations and frustrations and fears. So before I dive any deeper into this story, I want you all just to think for a moment about 3 aspects of the experience that you have with automotive brands. And you don't have to write it down, but just think about it from the perspective of, I wish blank, I have a certain aspiration for blank, or I'm fed up with, or I'm frustrated with blank. And the 3 areas are when you shop for a car. When I shop for a car, I wish blank, or I'm fed up with blank. When you own the car and operate the car over time, and when you get to that point where a few years have passed and you're looking at that car and thinking about that car and thinking about that car relative to the day you bought it. I wish blank. I'm fed up that blank. Okay, just think about that for a moment. The experience that you have interacting with the brand that you have become a customer of, the automotive brand. The star of Tesla's story are those prospects who are fed up with the traditional car buying process. Have you been there across the table? What? That's the price you're offering? Here's what happened when I went to buy a Tesla. Number one, I quickly understood that the price is the price. there is no negotiation. There's no haggling. There's no going in and oh, hold on, I've got to go talk to my manager. The price is the price. And because the quality of the product is so great, they can do that. I don't have that thought process that it's not worth the price. And I'm relieved. I'm more comfortable. It's a hassle avoided, because some of us, I guess, like to go in there and have these battles with the car salesman and sit across the table and wait for them to do the charade of I have to go talk to the manager and all that kind of garbage. But most of us appreciate the idea that it's super simple. You don't have to go through negotiations. And let me tell you how I went about the process of ordering the car. I went for a test drive. The guy who was the concierge the sales concierge at the Tesla dealership gave me his cell phone number and said, if you have any questions, just text me. So I did text him some questions. He thus had my cell phone number, and he never once reached out to me aggressively without me prompting and initiating a conversation. Imagine that. And then when it was time to order the car, I went online. I think I did it on my phone. I went to the Tesla website. I chose the car. I picked from a couple of options. I put $1,000 deposit down because the car was not on the lot. And I hit submit. And within 2 minutes, I had a confirmation that the order was coming. And then I proceeded to get texts and updates as far as where it stood in the delivery process. And it was accurate down to the day and the moment. Simple pricing, no negotiations, online ordering. Think about how that turns upside down everything that we expect or everything that we're fed up with in the car buying, car shopping process. Think about if we were to dream about what it would look like if I could buy a car easily without the headache and hassle. And they were able to deliver on that for me. The stars of this story are those prospects who wish they never have to deal with that double talking auto repair guy ever again. How many of us have gone in for routine service and, oh, Mr. Ruich, thank you for your $350 on the routine service. In addition, we're going to have to replace this filter and that filter. And, you know, your tires could use an alignment that wasn't part of the regular routine service. And this needs to get fixed. And next time you come back, we're probably going to have to hit you for another $750 because this thing or that thing don't work. When you open the front lid, what they call the front trunk of a Tesla, and this is true of other electric cars, but I think Tesla has something over the other brands. The thing you see is a storage space because there is no combustion engine that's in the front of the car. And then you see a little lid, and that lid is for the wiper fluid. The only fluid that you ever have to pour into this car is windshield wiper fluid. No oil, no water, no transmission fluid, no nothing. There's no routine maintenance. The brakes last longer because in an electric car and the way that Tesla has engineered the car, you don't, when you let your foot off the accelerator, the car actually brakes electronically so that so that you're not grinding brake pads together. The brakes last, by all accounts, hundreds, well over 100,000 miles and probably longer. And then get this, I have had a couple of issues. They were really a little piece of molding on the inside of my car. I discovered very shortly after I bought it that it had a little tear in it. Somebody who was servicing the car may have just caught a tool on it and had a little tear on it. And when I reported it, actually the way I reported it was I pulled up my Tesla app. I went to the correct section, pressed a couple of buttons, took me about 30 seconds to report it. And then it said, where do you live? And I entered my address. And then it said, choose one of these two options. You can take the car into the Tesla service center in Chesterfield, or we'll do a house call. Think about what I just said. The auto repair, the auto manufacturer said, we'll come to your house and fix your car. And that's exactly what happened. I said, I'll do the house call. I chose a date, gave me a range of options. I think the earliest date available was the next day. I chose a date. I work, and until the pandemic happened, I work about 10 minutes away from my house. And I was at my office the morning of the scheduled appointment, 11 a.m. or so. And around 10 a.m., first of all, that morning at about 8 a.m., I got a text confirming the appointment. At about 10 a.m., I got a text saying, Mr. Ruich, I'm running a few minutes early. I can go have a cup of coffee if you'd like, but if you're available, I'd be happy to meet you early. And in fact, that's what happened. I went home. He was there early. He got all the stuff he needed out, got into my car, fixed this thing, and all was well. I had another situation where when I closed the hood on the front, it seemed a little bit out of alignment. Again, house call. They came on 2 days' notice. They fixed this. Think about your experience with routine maintenance, with all of the stuff that goes into servicing a car. And imagine the process that they went through when this company was planning and debating questions like, okay, house calls for service. Should we do that? And what's very clear to me as I have been on the receiving end of this experience is that this is a company that put itself in the shoes of its prospects and its customers and said, what is it that they want and what is it that bugs them, and let's fulfill what they want and let's help avoid what bugs them. And they are delivering on that promise in the sales process, in the service process. And then this, to me, is the most remarkable thing in the aging of the product process. The star of this story is also that prospect or that customer who craves a car that, like fine wine, gets better with age. Think about what I just said again. A car that gets better with age. Who could imagine there is such a thing? But here's what happens with Tesla. On a regular basis, you'll get into your car after it's been parked for the night, and on the screen that sits on the dash of the car, you'll see a message, software update available, click this button. And they do over-the-air updates that just take a few minutes to load. It's all being done through the internet. And that list that you see at the bottom of this page, I'm not sure how legible that is for you on your screen. Here are some of the things that have happened with over-the-air updates in just the last 12 to 24 months for Tesla owners. There's been a software update that increases the speed of the car, the acceleration, and the range on a charge. So one day your car goes 0 to 60 in 3.6 seconds, and then the next day after the software update, it goes 0 to 60 in 3.4 seconds. One day your car can run 310 miles on a battery charge, next day it can run 325 miles on a battery charge. They improved the entertainment system. One day my car didn't have Spotify. The next day it had Spotify. My wife used to own a Ford, and we wanted to update the entertainment system so that it could support the Apple CarPlay and the Google, the Android CarPlay. So when you plug in your phone, you could take advantage of that system. Literally, it took us 3 service visits, failure, for the car to get that upgrade. And over the air, now your car has Spotify. Oh, by the way, if you're parked in your car, you're waiting for, your kid outside school, you're charging your car, whatever the case may be. You might be in your car for some extended period of time. Fire up Netflix. That was a software upgrade they added to the car at some point. You can now have Netflix in your car and watch it over the air. There are haters out there. There are vandals. There are thieves. Some people, just because they're that way, like to scratch with a key a Tesla, or kick the mirror, or whatever the case may be. And it became enough of a problem that the folks at Tesla said, well, what can we do about it? Well, the Teslas, because they have certain self-driving capability, have cameras built all over the car to see the traffic around them and so forth. And one of the software upgrades that they delivered was that if anybody gets within a certain distance, I don't know, 5 feet of the car, I forget what the distance is, the cameras will fire up, the dashboard will light up bright red, so that if it's nighttime especially, whoever has approached the car is going to see that, whoa, the car woke up. And those cameras fire up and they record anything and everything that's going on, and they write that to a thumb drive that you can plug in inside the center console of your car, and you can record anything that anyone is doing around your car until they get out of that distance. And there are countless, it's called Sentry Mode, and if you want to entertain yourself and just go online, Google Tesla Sentry Mode videos, there have been countless vandals and thieves who have been caught because a software upgrade, a car that improves over time, the software upgrade made it possible for this security feature to be added to the car after people had bought that car. And then they're automating time-consuming tasks. When you one thing about electric cars, Tesla is not the only one, but all battery-operated cars, the battery is less efficient in cold weather. And so what they recommend that you do is when you charge the car overnight, make sure that you do the charging process as close as possible to the time when you're going to get in the car in the morning. So you might be leaving for the office at 8 a.m. and you want to make sure that the charging ends as close to 8 a.m. as possible. Well, the way that worked when I bought my car is I would see that the car tells me how much juice I need to add to the battery to fill it up for, to where I want it to be. And I would calculate, okay, well, my charger that I have in the garage can add 30 miles of range for every hour of charging. And I would just do a little quick math. Oh, I need 100 more miles of charge to get it charged up. Well, that's 3+ hours. Well, I'll fire this thing up. You pre-program it. You just, when you get out of the car at night, you say, all right, I want to start charging at 5 a.m. So at 8 a.m., it's fully charged and warm. Well, that was a little math I had to do every time I got out of the car, reset it, change it each night, a little bit of a hassle. Upgrade came, and they now have a thing called departure mode. All you do is say, on Mondays through Fridays, I leave my house at 8 a.m. And that's it. That's a setting that you set, you walk away, and each night the car figures out when it should start charging so that your battery is charged and warm at the time that you said you wanted to depart. And oh, by the way, if you click this setting, it will also turn on the heating or cooling at the appropriate hour, 10 minutes before your planned departure. Okay. Now, these are all gizmos and features that may or may not excite you, but the principle that is remarkable here is that this is a company that has said, we're going to completely turn on its head the concept that when you buy a car, the moment you drive it from the lot, the value of that car depreciates, and this car is in devolution mode. It is devolving. It is getting worse and worse and worse and worse. The experience for those who buy this car is it gets better and better and better and better. And that is a remarkable concept. And it, in many ways, it fulfills an aspiration that few of us could have imagined just a few years ago when purchasing a car.
Tom, thank you so much. Appreciate it. I think we're going to end up having a couple questions for you too, if you can stick around at the end.
Yeah, am I at 15 minutes?
You're at.
Huh? Sorry.
Yeah, you're over 20.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry.
It's okay.
So sorry. I'll just throw one last thought. Tesla's very similar to Disney. And the idea here is that at Disney, they actually have a person who walks around and picks up bubble gum from the sidewalk. And the idea behind that is they believe that that's a marketing function. They believe that everything that goes on in the business is marketing. And that's the punchline of this presentation. Everything that you do in your business, marketing is everything, everything is marketing. So upgrades, house calls, the way you answer the phone, the way you handle sales, it's all marketing. That's all I got.
Thank you, Tom. No question, we could hear that you are a very satisfied Tesla owner. And you definitely, for the rest of us, you describe a car owner buyer experience dream. So thank you very much. Very valuable information to think about, as we look at, our own businesses and what we could offer to our clients or customers. All right, so I think it's time for me to turn this conversation over to our fearless leader, Mr. Purnett. I will give you the floor.
Thanks, Glenda. Appreciate that. So anyone who has any takeaways from the meeting, if you could put that in the chat to Will. In a minute, I'm going to ask you for what those takeaways were, Will. So if you have any takeaways that you'd like to share with the group from today's presentation, let us know. So I think it's kind of serendipitous that we would be doing a webinar today, since we've been thinking about doing one for a long time. And I don't think we thought we would do it under these circumstances, however. But I'm excited that we did it. And Will, I really appreciate your help. For those of you who have been to an E-Free event, you recognize these keychains. These represent not flying alone, do not fly alone. Whenever, whenever somebody becomes a subscriber, they get a keychain, and it represents our tagline, E-Free's tagline of "Don't Fly Alone." When we do get in trouble, it seems like we tend to go it alone rather than relying on the people who know and love us. So this keychain is a constant reminder that you can put in your pocket or in your purse that is a reminder of not flying alone. You might wonder, really, just what is it that E3 is all about? So in a very simple way, E3 tries to consider where you might be creating your company and how you might move it to building your company. The arrow between the two circles, company creation and company building, represents where my experience tells me most of us end up to be a company of one. I don't think that's necessarily our intention, but we end up being a company of one, and we don't seem to be able to get around to building our company. E4E attempts to help you in that process so that you can grow your business and perhaps someday sell your business. If you'd like to become a subscriber to E4E, you can join us at e4ecommunity.com and purchase a subscription. We'd love to have you do that. Will, did you get any feedback from me?
I do. So let me switch screens. So right in the middle of all this, my power went out. So I'm kind of juggling like crazy here. Let's see. Dave Austin says, my top takeaway is being part of the E4E community, even during the pandemic, thanks to all. I'm not sure who this is because I can't see the screen big enough. Maybe Dan said, takeaway, I want to buy a Tesla. Was that you, Dan? Thad James, takeaway from Brian, get to know what customers dislike about your industry and buying process. Oh, from Brian. Overcome those issues. Marketing is every step of the process. Let's see. I'm sorry, it's not showing me names, so I'm kind of guessing at the names. My takeaway, I think it's Andy. My takeaway is that the client customer wants to experience of that we take care of things and they do not have to think about it. Fantastic. Sorry, I'm scrolling down. Nathan, my takeaway is the final thought. Everything a company does is marketing. Great thought for companies to think about. Let's see, takeaway on Brian's presentation. Thank you. This is information that is so important and so easy to push to the back burner. I'd agree with that. Les says, Tom's comment that everything is marketing resonated with the extra effort I'm making with my current clients to double down on my service without increasing my fees. It's increasing my value and it's appreciated by the clients. Love that. And that's it. That's all I see right now.
Great. Will, thank you. So I just want to close my portion of the meeting by saying that I don't believe this will be our last webinar. I think we will be doing this again. We may be doing it as early as May, based on some of the feedback that we're getting. But we have a partner meeting tomorrow. And so any feedback that you can give us about the webinar prior to the partner meeting tomorrow would be much appreciated. So don't hesitate if you have any feelings about the webinar that you think we can do to improve, please let us know. Glenda, I'll turn it back to you.
Can't hear you. Glenda, we can't hear you.
Sorry, I thought I clicked unmute. Just learning all this webinar and Zoom stuff these days. Sorry. I just want to say thanks, Bill, for your comments. And I'm going to hit the ball over the volleyball net to Cynthia Corral to give us a sneak preview for our next month meeting.
Thanks, Glenda. So if you can see my screen, here's our lineup for next month. We have Andy Magnus doing the marketing spotlight, the intentional introduction. Mary Kuthais will be doing the run showcase, developing mental muscle. Kara Gamber will be doing the grow showcase, discover the value of unspoken needs. And for the live showcase, Kathy Sexton will be doing bright lines. You can get all the details at meetup.com/E4E community. I won't read everything out this time because I want to keep it short so we can move on to Dan's Q&A. But thanks everybody for being here and hope you enjoyed it. Back to you, Glenda.
Great. Thank you, Cynthia. And I would echo what Cynthia just said. We so appreciate partners, subscribers, and any guests that we have out there today. We so appreciate you taking the time this morning to join us, and we hope that you will, tune in again at our May meeting. I think I needed to announce that all the partners and the subscribers will be pre-registered for the May meeting, so you won't have to worry about registering for that particular meeting. If you are our guests today, that you can certainly, we have a website and we are a meetup, E4E community. Some of you found us, perhaps that's why you're here today with us. So any questions that you have, want to know more about E4E, please visit our website, e4ecommunity.com. We have a YouTube channel where you can view previous presentations by our partners. And we would love to have you join our community. And we know I'm certainly confident today you found value. It was different for us as a virtual meeting, but I think that our presenters did an awesome job in providing quality information, content for us today. So with that, I'm gonna turn it back to Will, because hopefully he'll be able to give us our Q&A responses for especially Dr. Dan. And I think there might have been, perhaps as you peruse the questions, there might have been something also more for Tom and for Brian. So Will, I'm gonna turn it back to you. And we are going to end our meeting today when we're out of time for Q&A. I think we have plenty of time left, but if we do run short on time, then Will will give us the heads up that we're out of time for today's meeting. So be well, all of you out there, and I look forward to seeing you again in May. Will.
Thanks, Glenda. Lots of good comments. Dr. Dan, thank you for the clear, concise information and education. I appreciate the factual knowledge about COVID-19. That was from Thad. Lori says all presenters did an amazing job with their first virtual meeting, so congratulations. We handled it fairly well, I guess, right? So I may have missed some questions, so if I don't get your question, make sure that you put it back in the chat and I will try to cover them all. I had a power outage, so I may have missed something. So, all right. Brian's asking, Dan, you say we're getting close to the peak in the pandemic interval. How likely is it that we'll have another cycle of COVID-19 cases?
Okay, thank you for the question. And does everybody have me audible?
Yes.
Fantastic. It's highly likely that we will see resultant, as we begin to reopen markets and economies and get back to some element of normalcy, or what the new normal is going to look like, we are going to see additional cases arise. That is absolute. The early effects of flattening the curve, though, are already proving to be effective. Hospitals are experiencing, no doubt, major workloads, but flattening the curve has worked. It's not time to let up yet. It is to be expected. Just when we're dealing with public health like this, we will see spikes, but nothing. The epidemiologists I follow, and I'm taking in this information all the time, are saying we're not going to see anything like a secondary reaction on par with what this initial rush looked like. But there will be spikes. That's a natural progression. Great question.
Awesome. Heidi Martin asked, does Sweden have nursing homes as we do in the US? I don't know if you know the answer to that one or not, Dan.
That's interestingly enough, I do. They do, but they take a little bit different approach. They try to keep older individuals together as they move into a care environment. So it's fascinating where oftentimes in the United States, the decision is made that that a family member is going to move into a care environment, and then if there's a circumstance where that individual's spouse is still well enough to live on their own, there's separation. In Sweden, they actually keep folks together, partners together like that. It's a different delivery of care there. And the other thing I'd like to mention, I held Sweden up just as an example because it was being discussed a fair amount regarding a different approach. Their population is 10 million people. We have 330 million people in the United States. So execution on public health factors is going to look different. But I held them up as an example because they were taking a positive, authoritative approach, which was an inappropriate way, I say that, meaning they were implementing the same public health measures that were being done elsewhere, but they decided to modify it and look at the actual risk for individuals and modify it in a meaningful way. And by no means am I indicating that there's no risk to children whatsoever with this. I believe we've had 3 deaths in the United States. But if we extrapolate that, and that's unbelievably tragic. But if we look at it from a statistical viewpoint, which is how public health is looked at, the statistics of it are 3 deaths out of, we're close to 23,000 deaths in the United States at this point in time. It's less than 0.01%. So, and again, Sweden's choice to do this differently is easier because they have a much smaller population, but there are some lessons.
Thanks, Dan.
Yes.
Andy said there's a lot of information out there that taken out of context can be emotionally charged. Where do you go to find data that is compared to other data of comparable magnitude to put all this in perspective?
Yeah, that's a wonderful question, Andy. And with respect to gathering information about this, I would just like to take a quick second to say this is unbelievably emotionally charged from go for all of us. It has affected all of us. And it's natural and healthy to have a fear response when there is something like this going on, truly unprecedented, a pandemic. Oftentimes, the flames of the fire can be stoked, though, and when we have environments that are sharing information in a sensationalized way, it can fan the flames of that fear excessively. So a healthy fear response makes sense. It's the reason why we're responding in a responsible way, with the social distancing. And what I am seeing personally, and this is a very skewed perspective because it's who I'm interacting with, but it's still relevant because I treat a multitude of different folks that I'm still in contact with, is so much respect for their fellow citizens, for their neighbors, incredible acts of kindness, incredible concern for the most vulnerable in the population. So I for obvious reasons, I don't like using the term fake news, but the real news that we're seeing out there is there's an outpouring of consideration for others. By and large, people are taking this seriously now. Early on, it was difficult to get factual information just because regarding the specifics of the virus. Now we're gaining an understanding there, and that's only going to grow in time. But to answer your question, Andy, your best spots really are cdc.gov, the Center for Disease Control. And from there, from that site, you will be linked to coronavirus websites, and that can be a great central location. That information is vetted. That information is reliable. And then, of course, each state has their website that's dedicated to this. And the links in my presentation will take you to the Missouri Department of Health.
We've had a couple of questions about today's replay. We will definitely have the video once it's processed and everything pulled down and put up, I guess, on our Facebook page and maybe some other places as well. So you will be able to go back and watch these again. Okay, for Brian, Lori wants to know, is there a template for key things needed to be addressed in the annual meeting?
Yeah, that's a good question. As much as I love templates, I don't have one or have, I don't know where one would be. I'm sure there are templates out there, but I've just never collected one for some reason. I think part of the reason probably is, as I grew up as a lawyer, most small businesses were LLCs and rather than corporations. And even though I have a few corporate clients, I'm a lot more, dealing with LLCs a lot, but I'll find one for you. So, and I can share it with the group too, if other people are interested, but I'll definitely follow up, Lori, and get one for you.
Thanks, Brian. Tom, Andy did the math for us, and it came out to 22.85187% of sales of all the others versus Tesla. So now you know the exact number.
Excellent. Thank you. Yep.
Richard wants to know, Tom, when you did your test drive, did the concierge sales guy go with you?
No, in fact, that was part. They sort of go out of their way to back off. I think they have an attitude that the product speaks for itself, and so they collapse the car with you. They show you a couple of wrinkles that you need to understand because it's different than driving a combustion engine car. They emphasize that go as long as you want. I don't know if that's always the case. If there are people in line, I don't know how many cars they have, but it was a very comfortable and easy process.
Thanks, Tom.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Richard also wanted to know, what is the resale value of a used Tesla? See, he's interested.
Yeah, I don't know those stats off the top of my head. I mean, first of all, Teslas have not been around that long, and the data set of people reselling them is smaller, of course, than other brands. But I think what I have read generally is that the resale value of the Teslas is holding up very, very well. Richard, I'll be happy to dive in and get some more detail for you.
Dan Thad is asking any advice about hydrochloroquine. Hopefully I said that correctly.
You did, and this is a very touchy subject right now because information has been released by individuals of high profile that are not medical doctors and do not have prescribing rights. As you know, I'm a chiropractic physician, so I do not have prescribing rights. What I can tell you is looking at repurposing existing drugs is a very common practice. And in this particular instance, they're looking at repurposing an immune modulator. And I don't have a professional opinion. I'm just and that's partially me playing it safe. And it's also that those of you who know me know that I have a very strong feeling about bolstering the immune system through natural methods. And I can speak further on that if there's interest. But bolstering the immune system through natural methods and understanding that even though this is a novel virus, it's new to us as human beings, the same basic tenets of boosting immune function still provide us with a degree of protection and a degree of ability to cope and deal with this. I don't want to go too far off the basis of the question itself, but there's an ability to respond to this, and fortifying the host in virology like this, an individual who is subjected to a virulent agent and then becomes infected is then considered the host. And strengthening the host is my chief goal amongst my patients right now, because the truth of the matter is many of us, by the numbers, the majority of us are going to come into contact with this virus. And by those same numbers, the majority of us are going to recover from this fully without incidence. So, but a drug like hydrochloroquine being used off-label is not odd, but it has not come down as an official recommendation, and there's a reason for that, and it is that it's not pushed forth yet as being exceptional at helping with this.
Thank you. Les had a comment more than a question. I participated at a day-long Zoom conference on Saturday And to Dan's point, one of the presenters said we can look back on this situation as the great pandemic of compassion.
Mm.
Nicely put.
Mm.
Ted has a question for Dan. We keep hearing the testing for COVID-19 is key to flattening the curve. Any insight as to when mass testing can be done in Missouri?
You know, that's a great question. We've got two different factors to look at when it comes to the testing. The first is testing actively symptomatic patients, okay? And then the second component will be testing individuals who believe they have had exposure, but either were denied a test when they had active symptoms, or amongst the population that will have come into contact with this, mounted an appropriate immune response, have active antibodies, and have immunity to it, but never fully manifested symptoms. So to answer your question, the first category of tests being available for individuals who have active symptoms right now. They've got a headache, they've got shortness of breath, they've got a fever, they've got a dry cough. Those individuals can now, a higher percentage of those individuals are being let through by the gatekeepers, the physicians and decision makers who are allowing those tests. There's a greater percentage of those individuals being tested now because there are raw materials available. They were keeping those tests reserved for the absolute most critical cases because they wanted to know, they wanted to know if those individuals who were most critical and most at risk were dealing with this novel virus, because some of the approaches differ, including being introduced to a ventilator for mechanical breathing support earlier than would be done in other cases. But the quick answer is tests are more easily available now. I know of many situations where people had symptoms, were denied tests because, again, they were going through a matrices that involved, have you traveled outside the United States? Have you had direct contact with a known COVID-19 patient? And then from that point, people were filtered. If you answered no to those questions early on, then you were not given a test. Many individuals, what we're going to find in the long run is many individuals have had this, sheltered in place, isolated, gotten well from it, and we have a percentage of the population right now that already has active immunity against this. We can only call it the novel coronavirus for so long because now it has come into exposure, and we're moving towards that herd immunity concept. We hear that talked about a lot with respect to vaccination, and that's a wonderful aid in moving us towards herd immunity for the masses of the population. But the process of immunity for the population has already begun. And that's the reason for the call for plasma donations from known COVID patients. They're utilizing some of the basic mechanisms of the immune system and introducing those antibodies. Again, those antibodies are to be used with the most critical patients now in hospital environments who are teetering and then can be given a boost to their immune system. So first test, the COVID-19 test for active symptoms, much more available now. And your physician is your gatekeeper. Urgent care systems are set up to handle this. And some of the urgent cares are also doing telemedicine. As of yesterday, I heard some of that announced. I think it was going on before, but it's official. So getting tested is easier now. And the second component is antibody testing. I had predicted it was going to take up to 6 to 8 weeks. It happened earlier than that. So there are active antibody testing sites in St. Louis. This is being done in a different fashion. For instance, I cannot send my patients into Quest or LabCorp to have testing for COVID-19 while symptoms are active right now. For obvious reasons, they do not want to act as an incubator or a spreader of that. But we're being able to now test for antibodies in the blood. And that's going to be a wonderful, wonderful dose of information where now the population will be able to look at it and say, wow, that cold I had, that flu I had was in fact COVID. And now I can move about in a way that I know once I'm free of symptoms and know that I have been exposed, I can move about in a way that I can interact in society without risk.
Thanks, Dan. We have a question from John and also from my wife. When do you think we'll be able to get out of the self-quarantine and not be stuck with Will anymore?
So with respect to coming out of quarantine, and you better know that my fiance is very glad I'm sitting in my office and doing this meeting. Oh, you have to leave today? So with respect to, I'm joking, she didn't say that. She was sleeping when I left. But with respect to when we're going to see things lifted, considering a new normal, I would look towards June and July. Now, that doesn't mean we're going to have this level of shelter in place happening. We know that this expires, per our governor in Missouri at least, on the 24th of this month. I would expect to see things opening up at that point in time, and May is going to be a time of testing the waters. We're going to be testing the waters of, as the population begins mingling more, how much of a rise in cases we're going to see. But again, the concept of flattening the curve is just that those who are most vulnerable and do need the hospital support, that there's capacity to handle and help those individuals. So we've done, we know by the numbers that we've already helped by our public health measures of sequestration. So things will begin opening up, and obviously I don't have a crystal ball on this, but my belief is May is going to be the proving grounds, the testing, and we're going to see the new normal, but more normalcy in June and July.
Bill wants to know if we can shoot for opening things up by his May 19th birthday. That'd be perfect.
we would love nothing more than to celebrate with our founder.
At first I thought it said it was his 19th birthday, which also makes sense.
I'm finding it entertaining to watch Bill do his belly laugh when he's muted.
Yeah. Tom, Bob Zangus has a question.
Yeah.
How do you charge your car on a trip?
That's a great question, and it could have been an entire section of the presentation. Tesla was way ahead of the curve on anybody in this idea of charging, and they have built a network of what they call supercharger stations around the country. And as long as you stay on the interstates, I don't think that the entire interstate network is connected with no distance greater than, I think, 200 miles. And the Teslas can basically run 300 plus miles on a full charge. Those superchargers you pay for those, but but it's way less expensive per mile than gasoline. The only thing that Tesla does as far as dealing, hey, I'm going to throw this in or throw that in, is they have offers from time to time where they throw in 1,000 miles or 1,000 miles or some amount of charging, free charging at superchargers. So they also have an affiliate program where if you refer a friend, they fill your bank. So I think it was 1,000 miles of free supercharging, and I've done a few long road trips, longish road trips, and I haven't paid a penny for those charges.
How long does it typically take for the car to be fully charged?
That's pretty amazing. So I think I saw another question about how do you charge these things if you don't have a garage. That's a challenge if you live in an apartment building or whatever. You can plug this thing into a standard outlet, but if you do that, you're getting about 6 miles per hour. 6 miles of range per hour. So if you plug the thing in when you get the car home from work and charge it all night long, you've probably put enough juice in the car for a pretty standard commute. That's slow though. I installed in my garage a higher voltage outlet, similar to what I would for a clothes dryer, a 220, 240, whatever. And that gives me about 30 miles of range per hour. So, and I have a very short commute, so I'm always easily filled up. On these superchargers, you can go from virtually empty to full in, so 300 miles of range in like 45 minutes or something. I forget the amount, but and they vary. Some of the superchargers have different different levels of juice, but these things are amazing how quickly you can do it. Now that's a lot longer of a stay than you have when you fill up with gasoline, but they tend to place these things next to restaurants or places where you can go grab a cup of coffee, or if you need to, you can sit in your car and watch Netflix.
Nice. Andy says currently he's getting 7 days per gallon since the stay-at-home order.
Yeah.
All right. One last question. I think we're almost out of time here. Tom Richard said, on a road trip, when you're at a charging station, do you pay for the full up? Do you pay for the fill up?
That's what I was talking about before. That without, so they put miles in your charge account, so to speak, when you buy the car. I think that's a deal they're giving everybody. But if I were to be doing long distance and have exhausted those 1,000 miles of charge or whatever the currency is, at some point, yes, I'm paying for it. And I don't know off the top of my head what the cost per, megawatt of charge or, but yes, you do pay for it. It's far less than gasoline costs, even at this very low gasoline cost. The price of gas is now 50% what it was, but I think you're still ahead of the game with the electric.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Tom. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, everybody, for being on here today. Dan, appreciate it. I think I've gone through all the questions. I really like the variety of topics. We went from COVID to Tesla to S-Corp questions, and it's been fantastic. So appreciate everybody jumping on, and most likely we'll be doing this again next month, I believe. Right, Bill?
I think we probably are going to be, Will, and we really appreciate you being the leader of the circus today.
Well, it's been fun. Appreciate everybody jumping on, and make sure you visit e3community.com to see all the videos, all our past videos, as well as probably this replay as well. So thank you, everybody, for being on today. Appreciate it.
See you guys. Have a safe
Thanks,
day. See y'all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Stay well. Thank you.